Is Bitcoin a bubble? Guys, welcome to Somewhat Scholarly. My name is Alan Hibbard. Right here, this is a bubble. This is Tulip Mania, Dutch Tulip Mania of the 1630s. This right here is Bitcoin. As you can see, they're nothing alike. Just kidding. Okay, obviously they're very similar. We're going to come back. We're going to come back to these charts. We're going to look at them in just a second. We're going to come back to this. This, of course, is Bitcoin's price logarithmically. We're going to look at that in a minute. First, I want to start with this list here. I've got 6 things that you can look at to figure out if something is in a bubble or not. Of course, it's not definitive, it's not absolute, but this is how I'm thinking about it, right? I thought about some very obvious bubbles throughout history and said, well, okay, what characteristics do they have and how is that different from things that aren't in a bubble? This is what I came up with. Number 1, probably the most important, is utility. So if you're looking at an asset and you want to know, is this in a bubble or not? You say, what can it do, right? If there was no price to it, just what can it do? And in the case of tulips, well, what can you do with a tulip bulb? You plant it in the ground and you get a tulip. It's like, okay, straightforward. So you know approximately how valuable that should be to you and to other people in society. In the case of Beanie Babies, okay, what's its utility if there's no dollar price to it whatsoever? It's a toy. You can cuddle with it or play with it the way you'd play with a toy. Okay, it's not the first toy that ever existed, so we know how much toys are worth to children, to people worldwide. So you can come up with a pretty realistic baseline if you step back and say, okay, well, what can you do with it? If it's not about buying and selling, what could you do with it? And then compare the price to what you would pay for it if you're just going to use it. And if there's a huge difference there, there's a chance it's in a bubble. Okay, next, fungibility versus collectibility. So fungibility, this is a property of money and currency. It's basically that things are identical and interchangeable. So if I hand you a $20 bill and you hand me a $20 bill, they're completely interchangeable. There's no difference between my bill and your bill. So we're happy to trade them. They're identical. However, things that are collectible, or I guess the opposite would be non-fungible. And non-fungible things tend to be collectible. So, anything that's collectible, absolutely anything. Beanie Babies, tulip bulbs, different colors, shapes, styles, whatever. Crypto kitties, right? Yeah, so anyways, I'm not aware of any fungible asset where they're all identical and easily tradable. Tradable because they're identical. I'm not aware of any fungible asset that has been in a bubble. Okay, temporarily, sure, but in a permanent bubble, I'm not aware of one. Right, all these assets, tulips, Beanie Babies, whatever, all these other, what was that thing? Tamagotchi, those like electronic little pets, crypto kitties, whatever. They're all non-fungible, and people tend to collect them. Oh, I got this one, I got that one. Mine's pink, mine's yellow, whatever. So that's a good way to tell. Number 3, attitude and emotion. So pretty much when prices are going up, everyone's euphoric. They can't wait. Oh my God, best thing ever. I'm going to make so much money on this. However, so it's hard to tell, right, if something's in a bubble or not. When the price goes up, people just get excited. It's just the way it is. However, you can look at attitudes and emotions when the price is not going up exponentially, when it's just like flat or just hanging out like regular. And if people are building excitement even when the price isn't going up, it's probably a bubble. That's less common, but it does happen. And another way to tell is your personal emotion when you're buying and selling. So if you're like, hey honey, I'm gonna go to the store, get some tulip bulbs, and we can plant them out in the garden, that's very different than, hey honey, I'm gonna go get some tulip bulbs. Okay, they're only $200, but then I'm gonna sell them for $400. Like, that's obviously very different. So if you check on your own emotions, why are you buying? Are you amped up, or are you just going to use it for its utility? Right? Very, very different. That's actually the next thing here, the holding period and the exit. So if your exit strategy is to sell it, right? So you're buying it just to sell it again, you're speculating on the price, very good chance that something's in a bubble if that's not the utility of the asset, right, and nothing is, right, there's no asset whose sole utility is just sell it for more than you paid for it. No. So if you're speculating on something that isn't normally a speculative asset, which is everything, there's a good chance that it's in a bubble, right, if that's your only exit strategy. But if your exit strategy is to use it for what it's designed for, and that's true of most people, then it's probably not in a bubble. Let me give you some numbers here. Actually, this is very important with regards to the holding period of Bitcoin. Hang on. Okay. I looked at some stats the other day. Let me see here. What is the numbers? 31%, 44%, 63%. Okay, what are these numbers here? 63% of Bitcoins have not moved in 1 or more year. 63%. So that's almost 2/3 of Bitcoins. The majority of Bitcoins have not moved in over a year. 44% have not moved in 2 years or more. 31% have not moved in 3 years or more. That's huge. That's huge. I mean, these are fairly large percentages, and I'm pretty sure they're the largest in Bitcoin's history as of right now, right? Like October 2020. That's humongous, because when you're in a bubble, holding periods are very short. People are buying, selling very quick. I mean, like minutes, hours, days. They're not usually waiting a year or 2 or 3. I mean, that's very, very rare. So I'm inclined to think that Bitcoin's not in a permanent bubble. However, there are certainly periods, right, where it shoots up very quickly, where it exhibits bubble properties, for that period of time. So absolutely, Bitcoin has been in a temporary bubble, but I just don't think it's a permanent bubble. Okay, so that's holding period. Next, cycles and patterns. That's what all these charts are for. So this right here we said is Bitcoin. However, it's not the entirety of Bitcoin's price history. This is just the 2011 bull run. And then here, this isn't even 2012 yet. This chart down here zooms out a little. This goes to the 2013 bull run. And this blip you see right here is this. So hang on, let me get a permanent marker. Okay, if you see that rectangle I drew right here, that's this entire chart. So we've just got a little bit more time here. So this is the 2011 2011 bull run. This is the 2013 bull run. Down here, this 2013 bull run is this right here. So this chart is this rectangle here. And then it repeats here. This is the 2017 bull run. And this peak right here goes to about there. So you can see that we have a repeating pattern. It looks like a bubble every couple years. It looks like a bubble. And everyone says, Bitcoin's in a bubble. It's in a bubble. And if you just look at it, at the face of it, yeah, I mean, it definitely looks like it. And I would say that probably in each of these cases, it was in a bubble for a little while, right? A month or whatever. But I don't think it's fundamentally a bubble. That's very, very different, because the utility of it as money is just a savings vehicle. And as you have an increasing percentage of people that are just saving, they're actually using it for what it's for, just like planting a tulip in the garden. That's what it's for. Sure, there will always be people who buy low, sell high, especially in an asset that's so liquid like Bitcoin, but that doesn't make it a bubble. So anyways, cycles, patterns, that's what we see. We see this pattern repeating in Bitcoin. However, if you look at an asset that's in a bubble, it doesn't have any repeating patterns within itself. It's just that whole pattern repeated once, which is to say not repeated at all. Like if it just happens once, there is no repetition. However, Bitcoin keeps repeating this over and over, forming a new lower base level and then appearing to be in a bubble again over and over and over again. I expect it's going to continue, which I'll get to in just a second. But there is no cycle, there is no pattern in these bubbles, right? There's one pump, one dump, and then it goes back to fair value. And that's sort of it. So the fact that Bitcoin has repeated so many times, and by the way, it did repeat a few times before this. I didn't want to like print like 20 charts or whatever. But I think it's done this type of pattern something like 8 times. We might be in the 9th one right now, I think. Anyways, so if I'm going to make a prediction of where do I think Bitcoin's price is headed next, well, let me switch markers. I mean, right? Like, where are we? October in 2020? Okay, so another bull run sometime in 2021, maybe? 2022? Hitting something like 100,000 and then coming down to something like 30 or 35? I mean, like, that's what it does. That's what it does. And this is where you say, Alan, it can't go on forever. Classic mindset of someone in a bubble who can't see it. Yeah, I get you. It cannot go on forever. I agree completely. The question is, how long will it go on? And on what logic are we basing that claim? And that's where we get to number 6, comparable assets or comparable assets, depending where you're from. So Bitcoin, we've said its utility is money. It is a savings vehicle. What can we compare that to? Well, not toys, not flowers. We have to compare it to money. That's gold. And that's this over here. This red bar is the size of gold. And I'm not talking about the price of 1 ounce. I'm talking about the market cap of all the gold. It's about $10 trillion globally. Plus minus. Might only be 9. Estimates vary, but let's call it 10 for the sake of round numbers. So if gold is 10 trillion. Hang on. All right, gold is 10 trillion. And of course, next to it is Bitcoin. As of right now, 0.2 trillion, which is to say 200 billion. That's 50 times bigger. That's 50x. Gold is 50 times larger. Let me make the decimal point here more visible. Okay. So I'm thinking if Bitcoin is roughly comparable to gold, it could easily be 50 times bigger just to be fairly valued. This would be like watching the tulip price go up, 100x or something like that, but then it's still cheaper than the other flowers. You'd be like, right? Like if it goes from a penny to $1, but then other flowers are $50. Would you say like tulips are in a bubble? They went from a penny to $1. Everyone would be like, no, I mean, it's probably still going to go up a little bit more. So that's what I think is going on with Bitcoin. So anyways, this big thing here, yeah, I mean, why would it not do that? I think it has room to run. I don't think it's in a bubble yet. However, when this happens, if and when, I think people will say Bitcoin's in a bubble. It's going to crash. It's going to go to zero. And, on a short-term basis, I would say like, okay, you're right. It's a short-term bubble because I think the price will correct 60, 70, 80% afterwards. But is Bitcoin in a permanent bubble? I mean, I really just don't think so. I don't know what you would base that on, I guess. Like anyone who's said like Bitcoin just straight up is a bubble permanently I've never heard anyone give a good reason. Okay, why is it a bubble? Explain why. Because you don't like it? Because it's hard to believe that it could be worth so many dollars per individual coin, yet it's so small compared to the only other comparable asset. I don't know. I just haven't heard a good argument for why Bitcoin is in a bubble in a permanent sense, a long-term basis. However, sure, yeah, short-term bubbles, yeah, plenty of them. There's going to be another one, whatever. So let me actually take this and draw it down here and then show the next one after this. That's what the first one would look like, by the way. This would take us almost to 100,000, and then when we zoom out, it would only be that big, right? Kind of like these other, like little ones. And then the next one could take us to 500,000. So let me draw that. Okay, so I mean, we see the pattern. We know it's happened, what, 8 times or something. This would be like number 9, number 10. And this would be like roughly $100,000 per coin. This would be almost $500,000 per coin. And I don't know, 2021, 2022, something like that. And then, I don't know, 2026, 2027, 2028. I mean, obviously, really hard to say. Who knows? But I think it will happen eventually. It might be off by a year or 2 or 3 or 4. But I don't think it's a fundamental bubble. And as we look at the logarithmic trajectory of Bitcoin's price, I mean, this doesn't look like a bubble to me. This looks like an asset that is trying to find its fair value. And since we know so much about the nature of people who like Bitcoin and use it, as well as the people who don't like Bitcoin and don't use it, and how those two groups have shifted over time, you know, we see this sort of the narrative of what Bitcoin is and the belief of what Bitcoin is change over time. And that's probably a subject of a separate video. But let me just draw these mini bubbles on this long-term graph, and you'll see what it looks like. Something like that. Something like that. Again, the timing is the timing is imprecise, but then again, so is the vertical axis. So yeah, I mean, why would it not do that? Why would it not do that? I don't know. I haven't heard a convincing argument. It's just the people who find it hard to believe. Like, I can't imagine Bitcoin would be $100,000 or $500,000 or $1 million per coin. It's hard to believe, therefore it's impossible. I don't think so. I mean, that to me seems most likely. Yeah, it might take another, 8 years or something like that, but whatever. So anyways, I don't think Bitcoin is a permanent bubble. However, I do think it will ultimately go to zero. But not because it's a bubble, for very different reasons. And that is a different video I will make for sure. But I'm not going to do it anytime soon. It's not what you think, definitely not. It's not because of regulation. It's not because of a better Bitcoin will be created. It's not because of quantum computing. It's not because of a lot of the things I hear people say. I've actually never heard anybody say it, like not an author, an influencer, not even a nobody. Like, I haven't heard anybody say it. I will share it with you down the road. I think I'm going to save it for a 1,000 subscribers video. So that could be months away. Who knows? But yeah, stay tuned. Stay tuned. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next video.